Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, President Buhari demands proper accountability for Nigerian and other African returnees from the Mediterranean area as he receives the AU and ECOWAS Commission heads in Abuja. People's Democratic Party faults approval by governors for the withdrawal of $1 billion from the excess crude account to boost the fight against insurgency. General Court Martial sentences soldier to death for killing 5 civilians rescued from Boko Haram in Yamkete town in Borno State. And EU leaders agreed to move Brexit talks to the second phase. British Prime Minister Theresa May hails decision as an important step.
And on business news tonight, Nigeria's Debt Management Office plans to raise over 1 trillion naira through treasury bills as it releases new auction calendar for the first quarter of 2018.
On sports news, FIFA threatens to expel Spain from the 2018 World Cup due to political interference in the affair with the country's football federation.
And from Abuja, federal government approves purchase of vessels to monitor illegal and unregulated fishing on Nigeria's waterways.
We begin with the President's request for proper accountability and good neighborliness among countries in the West African region and on the African continent. President Muhammadu Buhari's call comes on the heels of the visit by the President of the ECOWAS Commission and the Chairperson of the African Union Commission to the State House, Abuja. President Buhari told the President of the ECOWAS Commission, Marcel de Souza, who was his first guest, that he's happy with the level of accountability at the ECOWAS headquarters, especially with the recent invitation extended to the EFCC to help the AU review its books. At the meeting with the President of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, President Buhari called the attention of the AU chief to the need to authenticate the origin of Libyan returnees before they are evacuated because some of them may not be Nigerians. Meanwhile, another batch of 365 illegal migrants in Libya have returned to Nigeria with the aid of the International Organization for Migration. Amongst them were 98 female adults, 7 female children, 14 female infants, 233 adult male, 3 male children and 11 male infants. The zonal coordinator of NEMA in the southwest, Yakubu Suleiman, who welcomed the returnees back to the country, implored them to be champions of positive change among the youths who are still nursing the idea of seeking greener pastures abroad. Meanwhile, the program manager of the EU IOM in Nigeria, Mr. Abraham Tamrat, has been speaking on the initiative which they plan to adopt in 2018 to reintegrate the migrants into the society.
Since it started in April, the project has assisted more than 5,000 Nigerians to voluntarily return from Mediterranean route, mainly Libya, Niger, Mali, and so forth. So it has also initiated the reintegration support provision, giving priority to the most vulnerable. We're talking about most vulnerable, such as possible victims of trafficking, minors, pregnant women, and so forth. So we're providing reintegration as well. We have initiated that component as well. These 5,000 plus migrants will be reintegrated, so we'll be expanding capacity. And the reintegration component includes 3 aspects. One is individual reintegration, the other one is collective reintegration, and the third one is community-based reintegration, where it tries to address the needs of the receiving communities, to reduce the impact of the return migration on receiving communities. So we'll focus on that one while also continuing to provide return assistance for migrants that are stranded in different parts of the Mediterranean route.
In the meantime, the People's Democratic Party has described the approval by governors for the release of $1 billion for the fight against insurgency in the northeast as curious and alarming. The party accuses the All Progressive Congress administration of securing approvals from the governors without recourse to due process for a fight it has since claimed victory over. The PDP, in a statement signed by its National Publicity Secretary, asked the APC to apologize to Nigerians over what it says are false claims regarding the fight against insurgency. The statement reads in part, quote, "The PDP supports the fight against insurgency. We hold our officers and men confronting the terrorists and securing our territorial integrity in high esteem, but we're concerned about the manipulative tendencies connected with the approvals, as well as the veracity of the claims concerned." Now, it would take $1 billion from the nation's savings to cure what they long claimed dead. Then we challenge the APC government to come clean and tell Nigerians the whole truth, end of quote. The PDP calls on the National Assembly to question the proposed disbursement and subject it to a thorough and rapid interrogation. Well, the last has not been heard about the now controversial $1 billion excess crude account approval by the state governors. The reverberation from that announcement by Governor Godwin Obaseki has opened up several debates and is already raising questions regarding the authenticity of the approval by the governors and, more importantly, why it's happening at this time.
It hurts them to know that we know that they are decimated.
That was the statement that raised the hope of many Nigerians in February last year, as government claimed it had decimated Boko Haram terrorists and was dealing decisively with the remnants hiding behind the mountains. But that story may have changed now. A whopping $1 billion. That's approximately 361 billion naira, is what the National Economic Council approved on Thursday to be withdrawn from the excess crude account to boost the fight against the insurgents.
With the achievements that have been made to date in the fight against insurgency, particularly in the northeast, the governors of Nigeria, through their chairman, announced at the NEC meeting that the governors have given permission to the federal government to spend the sum of $1 billion in the fight of insurgency. This money is supposed to be taken from the excess crude account.
That decision is now a subject of criticism, especially now that government is just recovering from an economic downturn orchestrated by the drop in oil prices globally. What is of greater concern to many analysts is the current depleting status of the excess crude account, which findings have shown will be left with just $1.2 billion after the withdrawal of the newly approved $1 billion. Ekiti State Governor Ayodele Fayose, who obviously was absent at the NEC meeting, seems not ready to agree with the resolution reached by his colleagues.
I want to disassociate myself from such decision because it does not represent the state of the Nigerian nation and the mood of the nation. These are scandals, these are issues, and Nigerians must ask questions. We are demanding that they should equally give account of the ones they have spent in time past, because our future, our commonwealth is under threat.
There seems to be more Nigerians out there who are asking questions regarding why the government would be spending so much when it claims it is already winning the war. In recent times, the terrorist group has been re-strategizing and has resorted to the use of suicide bombers. Violence linked to insurgency has left at least 20,000 people dead and had more than 2.6 million others homeless since the year 2009. Yet, Nigerians are still asking questions, and the biggest of the questions is, will the new funds approved by the state governors change the strategy adopted by the Nigerian army, or import a new military intelligence that has not been offered since the war started in 2009?
Now let's get some perspective of all this, and joining me now is a retired military officer and a security consultant, Colonel Hassan Stanlabo. Thank you so much for joining us on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you.
In your assessment of the anti-terror war, given what we've been told about, Boko Haram being decimated and all that, territories being taken back, do we need this sort of money at this time?
Thank you, Jama. First of all, I want to commend all those who are behind the approval of this money for the very altruistic gesture they have done us. I must tell you the fact. Prosecuting a war comes with a great deal of financial challenges and even resources besides financial challenges. This money that is being released will be going a long way in bringing a lot of, a lot of assistance to the average soldier there in the forward lines. There are issues with, as we speak, there are issues with welfare conditions of troops, there are issues with logistics, there are issues with operational issues, and so on. Look at the issue of platforms, for instance. The Air Force told us a few days back they are spending about 400 million naira monthly just for petroleum, oil, and lubricants for the attack aircrafts. That is just one component of expenses. They are not talking about feeding of their men and so on. Then when you look at the land forces, that is the army, look at its own platforms, the tanks, and so on. Look at the welfare issues with the troops. Backlog of allowances where there are, they need to be paid. Troops rotation. Each troop rotation comes with induction and deduction exercises. Okay? And what of the troops in the hospital with all sorts of deformities, and injuries that need to be attended to?
We hear that argument, but when you also talk about the purchase of intelligence and everything that you have said now, was there no provision for that before? And the question is, what has happened to the provision for that, such that we need this amount of money to, are we now supplementing, or is this fresh provision? Those are the questions, the difficult questions that we just have to ask.
They are not difficult if only we have an open mind and listen to informed minds like us who are trying to pass on information. Okay. I don't want to say people are speaking out of ignorance.
So then you shouldn't say that if you don't want to say that.
Yes, because it might be taken to be derogatory.
There is nothing ignorant about asking where money is going.
Sure,
that's one of the biggest problems that we have when we question.
Let's spend some more time explaining than arguing.
Okay, so I'm listening to you.
Good.
What sort of provision is this?
No money is ever enough when you prosecute a war like this. I don't want to look, ask the Americans what they have spent in Afghanistan. No money is never ever enough. Why? Because you might plan to spend 5 kobo and you get into the battle space or into the battleground and you see yourself requiring about 8 kobo. The dynamics of executing a war is such that it makes a lot of things very unpredictable. Because the greatest mistake you make is to think the enemy is a daft. He's not a daft. In most cases, he's as trained as you are, if not better trained. So he's got his own tactics. He's got his own techniques and procedures to bring to bear on the battleground or in the battle space.
All right. Yes, I know you've talked about that and what you need in the theater of war. But let me bring your attention to something that the UN had said about the sort of money they think we should be spending and how we should spend it. They had talked about the need for $1.1 billion to be spent on the humanitarian aspects of this war, IDPs and etc. So do we prioritize the fallout of the war, that's the IDPs, or having more intelligence and more hardware? Finally now, what do you think should be the priority?
Thank you. One is a product of the other. The IDP issue is a product of the insecurity question on ground. So why not attack the root of the entire problem by addressing the situation, the insecurity situation on ground, so that you can reduce the amount of IDPs you have. If you want to be addressing the IDPs, keep addressing them and more will be coming, because this insecurity situation will keep pumping out IDPs for you. We just have to be very objective in our thinking. I think all what is happening now, I must tell you, Joma, before I leave, is that we are beginning to politicize the entire issue. If you listen to the wordings of the PDP gentlemen who spoke, they were referring to APC doing this and that. Look, it is unfortunate, but I expect that as a nation, we know that this is a problem which the PDP couldn't fix in the last dispensation. We now have a government that is addressing it squarely, having the right leadership in the right places. We should give them every support they need, so that this issue can be done with. Look at the de-radicalization program that is ongoing. Address the rehabilitation component of that program alone. and see how much it gulps.
All right, it's at that point that I'm going to have to leave it. I know we do have a lot more to say on this issue, which we shall get to at some other time in some other forum. But I'm going to thank you, Colonel Hassan Stanlabo, for joining us on the news.
Thank you, Joma.
Thank you so very much.
I appreciate it.
And in part 2, after the break, General Corps Marshal sentences soldier to death for killing 5 civilians. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.